Hi there, it's Jackie Turner again. We are reading Bending Willow. Bending Willow, someday I'll get that right the first time. And I just wanted to preface chapter 10 because it gets a little bit scary. Not everybody you meet in the world is going to be a kind and loving person, although most of them are. So just wanted you to know the girls are going to be okay as I begin to read chapter 10. Nothing had ever felt better to Riley than that shower. She and Mia used every bit of shampoo and that tiny bar of soap to get clean. There was plenty of warm water, and Riley let Mia stay in the shower even longer than they needed. Might as well get their money's worth. They picked the cleanest shorts and tank tops they could find in their backpacks. Then Riley pulled out the sunscreen the big lady had given them the first day at Burning Man. She spread the sunscreen over their arms and faces. Combing the tangle from Mia's hair in front of the shower room mirrors was another harrowing experience. But Riley promised to put 2 braids in Mia's hair when all the tangles were gone. 3, I want 3 braids, insisted Mia. So Riley copied what she'd seen the Israeli girls do with 3 parts of Mia's hair. She had 1 braid on each side and 1 in the back, though Riley thought the one in the back looked silly. Mia admired herself in the mirror while Riley combed her own hair. She decided to put her hair in braids too, thinking it might help them look different than the pictures on TV. She was stalling. They were going to have to leave the bathroom sooner or later. She glanced up at the black clock above them. Almost 4 o'clock. It was getting late. Riley took a deep breath, grabbed Mia's hand, and headed out the door. A trucker leaned against the doorframe of the trucker's lounge. I keep doing that. He was shorter than some of the other truckers Riley had seen, and his arms looked too big for his t-shirt. He turned and watched them walk toward him. Riley wasn't sure she liked the way his eyes narrowed, then widened. He smiled. "Hey there, little ladies. Where are you headed this fine day?" "We're going to Idaho," Mia said before Riley could stop her. Riley pulled Mia forward, but the trucker walked beside them. "Really? That's where I'm going. Do you need a ride?" Riley stopped. They did need a ride, and they needed to get away from this place and the TV as soon as they could, but something felt wrong. Still, "Actually, we do," Riley said before she could talk herself out of it. "Great," the trucker said with a big smile. "Follow me. My rig's right outside." He walked out the side door of the Flying J toward a large truck with a white cab, the kind of truck Nico had called an 18-wheeler. He climbed up on the step to the passenger door, then pulled the door open, glancing around as if he'd forgot something. Riley's stomach gave a little funny. She thought she'd been taught not to take rides from strangers, but they'd already found rides twice and everything had gone okay. The trucker held out his hand, and Mia grabbed it. He lifted her into the cab of the truck. Riley let him take her under her arms and lift her up next to Mia. His eyes were green, like a cat's, but his smile didn't light up his face the way River's smile did. She jumped when he closed the door behind her. Inside the truck was huge and smelled like cigarettes and dirty socks. The truck was different than River's. The front seats were separated by cup holders. The girls sat on the passenger seat, which was plenty wide for both of them. The truck driver climbed into the driver's seat and started the engine. "Let me help you with your seatbelt," he said, reaching around the girls and pulling the seatbelt forward. His scratchy chin brushed Riley's forehead. She smelled his cigarette breath and shivered. I'm Todd, he said, raising his voice over the loud engine. What are your names? Riley leaned forward and said quickly, I'm Willow and this is Sparkles. Willow and Sparkles, he repeated, raising his eyebrows. Those are some interesting names. Yep, Mia said. River gave them to us. Todd said. He turned the truck toward the sign that said 93 North and started driving down the highway. Mia asked question after question about Todd's truck, and he seemed happy to answer them all, keeping up a steady stream of conversation as he drove. Riley glanced around the cab. There was a space for walking between the seats and a bed behind the seats, with what looked like a curtain tucked into one side. As they rolled down the highway, the sun got lower in the sky. It seemed like they passed miles of cow pastures without really getting anywhere. Then, just past a town called Jackpot, Todd pointed to a sign on the side of the road. Looky there, girls, we're entering Idaho. Riley could just make out the sign that read, Welcome to Idaho. In the fading light, her heart leapt. They were in Idaho. Would she finally get to meet her dad? Would he want her? Riley's stomach clenched. After all they'd been through, what if her dad didn't want her? Mia's head began to bob, and soon she was asleep on Riley's shoulder. Todd reached over and laid his hand on Mia's leg. The light of the dashboard made deep shadows under Todd's eyes. He glanced at her, green eyes glowing. Poor little Tyke's beat. We should probably pull over and catch some shut-eye. Riley noticed Todd didn't remove his hand from Mia's leg. The butterflies came back to her stomach. What had she been thinking? She didn't know this man. I thought we were going into Idaho further, she said, her voice shaking. We'll do that tomorrow, he said. It's late now. He pulled the truck off the side of the road in a wide spot next to a field and turned off the headlights. He leaned over and undid their seatbelt, then looked at Riley. Willow, can you just wait outside for a minute while I get your sister settled in? Suddenly Riley knew they had to get away. It didn't matter that it was almost dark. Being in the dark was better than being here. Slowly, Riley opened the passenger door, then grabbed Mia, startling her awake. She lifted her sister over her lap, placing her down on the step. Run, Mia, run! Mia jumped down from the truck and started to run, then turned and looked back at Riley. Confused, Riley threw out her backpack and tried to follow Mia, but Todd had a hold of her shirt. You brat, he yelled, pulling her back into the cab. Riley spun around and kicked as hard as she could. He shoved her feet aside. Fine then, I'll teach you a lesson, he said, grabbing her legs so tight that she thought her bones might snap. Stop, you're hurting me, Riley yelled. She needed to do something quick, but what? Riley flung her arms back, trying to find something she could grab a hold of. Suddenly, she felt something small and hard pressed into her hand. She forgot everything else. It was Grandma's mace. Riley shoved the tiny spray can into Todd's face, held her breath, and pushed the plunger. The can hissed, and her eyes started burning. She squeezed her eyes tight. Ah! Todd jerked away, releasing Riley's legs and digging at his eyes with his fists. What did you do, you brat? Take that, sucker, Mia said somewhere behind Riley's back. Riley kicked away from Todd and scrambled out of the truck. She grabbed Mia's hand, snatched her backpack off the ground, and they ran. Riley's eyes burned so bad she could hardly see where they were going. Look, Mia said, pulling Riley to a stop. There was a fence with sharp, pointy wire in front of them. Riley wiped her eyes and glanced back over her shoulder at the truck. No sign of Todd, but they needed to get as far away as they could. Carefully, she grabbed the wire closest to the ground and pulled the wire high to make a space for Mia to crawl under, then tossed her backpack after her. Riley slowly let the wire down, then tried to squeeze herself through. The pointy wire ripped at her legs and grabbed hold of her shirt. Her heart stopped as she pictured Todd's hands grabbing her again, but he was still back at the truck, yelling cuss words. Riley took a deep breath, reached back, and unhooked the wire from her shirt. Then she stood and grabbed Mia's hand. "I know who you are," Todd yelled. Riley glanced back at the truck. He was standing in the light coming from the passenger side of the truck. There was something dark in his hand. Was it a gun? Was he going to shoot them? "If you don't come back right now, I'm going to call the cops." He wiped his eyes with his sleeve, and Riley could see the gun clearly. "You little brat, you can't hide from me. I'll get you sooner or later." "Run!" Riley yelled, and they took off through the field. They ran as long as they could, tripping over the field's uneven surface in the dark. "I can't." Mia flopped on the ground and lay there panting. The air smelled of hay and plowed dirt. Riley stood beside her sister and tried to catch her breath. A dark spot loomed in front of them. Was it a building? "Come on, just a little further." Riley helped Mia up and then walked cautiously forward, keeping Mia behind her. As they got closer, she could see what she thought was a building was really a big stack of hay. Riley had seen small bales of hay before, but this one was rolled like a mountain of hay or a giant wheel of hay. The girls hid behind the stack and peeked out in the direction of the truck. Riley's heart pounded as Mia made little whimpering noises. Was Todd out there looking for them? Would he shoot them both? Or worse, kill her and take Mia? A truck engine rumbled from the direction of the road and the lights flashed on. They were further away from the road than she thought. The truck pulled onto the highway and continued in the direction they'd been going. Riley let out a breath. Was he leaving for good, or was he going to get the cops? And what were they going to do now? That's the end of chapter 10. Thanks for hanging in there with me. I know it's a hard chapter. See you soon for chapter 11.